Welcome everyone. My name is Jenny Smithers and I'm the convener of Lighter Footprints. My professional life has been working as a GP. So, no surprise, my first message is from the medical world. Some of you may have heard of one of the world's most prestigious medical journals, the Lancet. The Lancet's position is, climate change is the greatest global health threat facing the world in the 21st century. But it is also the greatest opportunity to redefine the social and environmental determinants of health. You will have heard and you've experienced that the last 10 years have been the hottest years on record and that 2024 was the hottest year ever on record. This graph shows the global mean temperature above the 1850 to 1900 average, and it relates to the time period 1850 to 2024. You can see, even in the last 12 years since the first Kooyong Candidates Forum in 2007, there has been a significant uptick in the global mean temperature. It is not good when your doctor looks worried when they are talking to you about your health. Well, the climate scientists are extremely worried about the sharp rise in the global mean temperature. Temperatures are rising faster than expected. You all know that the world is getting hotter because greenhouse gases in our atmosphere are trapping heat. And you may be familiar with this graph. The graph shows the level of CO2 in the atmosphere from 800,000 years ago to today. How do we know what the CO2 level was 800,000 years ago? The measurements are taken using CO2 concentration from bubbles trapped in East Antarctic ice cores. The most recent measurements, shown in red, are taken directly from air samples. In February 2025, the concentration had risen to 427 parts per million, way up the top. We cannot keep putting more CO2 into our atmosphere, nor other greenhouse gases, especially highly warming methane, natural gas. What is our part as Australians as contributing to climate pollution? This graph shows Australia's CO2 emissions, excluding land use and land use change and forestry, in 2022. The grey bar graph above the central line shows our domestic emissions compared to other countries. The red bar graph below the central line shows our exported CO2 emissions, coal and gas. There we are. We're not on the podium, but we're up there. In 2022, Australia was the fourth largest fossil fuel exporter. Australia's global fossil fuel carbon footprint is at least 3 times larger than our domestic footprint. The International Energy Agency has clearly said there should be no new fossil fuel development if the world is to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the Paris Agreement's temperature goal. Yet, Australia continues to approve new fossil fuel exploration and production. Are we on track to keep our climate safe? At present, the answer is no. A rise of 3 degrees Celsius by the end of this century is not safe. Climate Action Tracker is an independent scientific project that tracks government climate action and measures it against the globally agreed Paris Agreement aim of holding warming well below 2 degrees and, to look after Ivy and her cohort, pursuing efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Here is a slide depicting Australia's emissions over time with projections of what course Australia's emissions need to be on to achieve possible temperature rise outcomes by the end of the century. Climate Tracker's overall rating for Australia's emission reduction actions for 2024, as you can read, insufficient. Note that the blue line, which charts Australia's actual domestic emissions, is in the orange zone of insufficient for a less than 3 degrees Celsius world. The green line charts where Australia's emissions need to be 1.5 degrees Celsius compatible, assuming our nation will play its part in keeping the climate safe. Australia is using up its carbon budget. Australia could be on track. Renewable energy storage is growing. Rapid conversion of our electricity to renewables will give us time to manage the emissions from other sectors. We have not a moment to lose, and every action we take now gives our children and their children a better climate future. You are probably familiar with this statement by American environmentalist and author Bill McKibben. Winning slowly is the same as losing. My final slide is a statement of the key findings from the Australian Security Leaders Climate Group report May 2024. They said, climate disruption now presents the greatest and potentially existential threat to society and human security in Australia and around the world. A new insecurity shadows our lives and the relations between nations. The Asia-Pacific, the highest risk region in the world, faces devastating climate impacts, and Australia, as a hot and dry continent, is particularly vulnerable. So, some of the most trusted members in our society, the doctors, scientists, and the military, are telling us we are in trouble. We need to listen to those voices.